Okay, I think if we can now get going.
Yeah.
Hey folks, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hope you all are having a great day. Welcome to the 142nd episode of YFTT Tech Talks by Engineers for Engineers. I am Hemant Bhanawat, Director of Engineering at Yugabyte. Today we have with us Priyanshi Gupta, Software Engineer with Yugabyte. She joined Yugabyte as an intern and has been instrumental in developing our product YB Voyager that we'll be talking about from scratch in last 4 years. Today she will discuss how to assess the migration when migrating from Postgres to Yugabyte or from any other DB, right, to database. This is the first part of the talk. We will also have a second part as well. Over to you, Priyanshi.
Yeah. Thanks, Hemant. Hi, everyone. As Hemant mentioned, I am Priyanshi Gupta, software engineer here at Yugabyte, working with one of its offering a product called Voyager, which helps in migrating various kind of source databases to Yugabyte. So it helps in streamlining the migration process for the users. And one of its features which we are discussing today is assessing a migration. So assessing a migration is important in the initial phases of migration so that user is aware about the migration journey in a very ahead time of the migration and before even starting the migration. So let's get started. This will be our agenda for today. First of all, we'll be understanding about some challenges which user face while migrating various databases. And then we'll understand about the Voyager feature assessment, which helps in overcoming or reducing these challenges for the person who is doing the migration. And third, we will be understanding one of the capability of assessment, which is assessing incompatibilities. And then we will also understand about how assessment provides all the details or the necessary assessment for the particular source based on a particular Yugabyte DB version as well. Lastly, we will see a working demo for the Voyager assessment. So yeah, let's get started with the database migration challenges. So here we'll be talking about various migration challenges one face while migrating a database to another. Firstly, we'll have a challenge. We'll understand about a challenge which is in understanding the source system completely in depth, which requires a lot of various parameters to understand and analyze. And it requires a deep knowledge about the source database and the various catalog queries to go through all of them and understand, which is a tedious task for a person to do it manually. So this is one of the challenge. And then it comes to another challenge, which is understanding incompatibilities. Once someone is aware about the source database, now they need to map that all the findings from the source database with respect to the target and understand all the incompatibilities which are currently present. And then they need to plan accordingly to overcome all those. And then lastly, it comes to a very important challenge which one face while migrating one source database to target, where an application is already running on the source database and performing well. Now they need to change that application to point to target database. So for that, they need to come up with a configuration for for that target database so that it can perform well and in the same manner that the source database was performing. So these are the three major challenges one face while migrating databases from a source to target. Now we will understand how Voyager assessment helps and how Voyager assessment comes into the picture. Voyager assessment provides a detailed analysis or a detailed report of the source database with on various parameters like understanding various source system and schemas, and then it generates a comprehensive list for the user, a comprehensive report for the user to understand about the migration journey in the initial phases of migration. It also recommends various strategies for the user to use in the migration so that they can utilize all the capabilities of the target and make their application working seamlessly on the target. So we'll be understanding various features which Voyager assessment provides. One of them is assessing incompatibilities. So as we have understood about the challenge where user need to understand the incompatibilities with the from the source with respect to the target. So, Voyager assessment helps in automatically detecting all those incompatibilities by understanding the source system completely or even the application, and then it comes up with a comprehensive list of all the incompatibilities which are currently present, so that user can make the necessary changes or the necessary actions for the migration even before starting the migration. Then it also gives us a complexity for the migration, which helps users to understand the migration journey. It gives a single term complexity for the user, which helps them understand it in the very initial phases of that migration. And then lastly, an important feature which it provides is it also recommends a various target configuration or the parameters which one can use to leverage all the features of the target properly and make their application work seamlessly. One of a couple of them are, first of all, it provides a configuration of the cluster sizing so that they can make their target very capable enough for the application which was running on the source system. And then secondly, it also provides, yeah,
Yeah, so the migration complexity may be determined by the compatibilities, right? Incompatibilities,
right,
correct?
right, right. It
So,
also it consider all the incompatibilities which it has found in the source database with respect to that particular target,
yeah,
and then it comes up with a detailed analysis of that complexity as well.
sounds good. Yeah.
So yeah. So I was talking about the target recommendation which it provides. For the first target recommendation, it provides a cluster configuration, a detailed cluster configuration, so which one can use directly. And the second, it provides various data distribution strategies like sharding and co-location for various objects, which one can use to leverage the distributive nature of the target database and make their application perform well on that target database. Now, in this session, we'll be understanding in detail about the assessing incompatibilities feature of assessment. And in the future session, as Hemant mentioned, we'll be coming up with another YFTT for part two for assessing migration. We'll be understanding migration complexity and target recommendation with a detailed uh, session. So, sorry. Yeah. So let's get started with assessing incompatibilities. Assessing incompatibility comes up with understanding all the features or data types which are present in the source database and are not compatible with the target database. And assessment provides all the detailed information about all these incompatibilities. There are various type of incompatibilities. One of them is schema or PLPG incompatibility. By this, I mean the incompatibilities which are present in the source schema and the incompatibilities which are present in all the objects which are there or the use cases which are there in the source database. Voyager assessment comes up with all those incompatibilities in the detailed report. And then secondly, there is another incompatibility type, which is application queries or the application layer incompatibility. We'll be understanding about both of these incompatibilities in detail in the further slides. So let's go ahead with the schema or PLPG incompatibility. So in this, we report all the problematic DDLs or the problematic objects which are there in the source database, including all the PLPG objects as well. So with the schema and PLPG, I mean all the DDL and the PLPG statements which have some problems or issues. Assessment comes up with the detailed information about those issues and the recommendations if there are any for that particular issue in the assessment. With this, we try to identify all such features or data types which are present in the source and are not compatible or supported yet with the target. And here by target, I mean Yugabyte. Obviously, as Voyager assists the migration for the Yugabyte so that one can migrate their source database to the Yugabyte. Then, secondly, we also try to identify Voyager gaps in the source database for any of the migration workflow. By Voyager gaps, I mean the features or the source schema which is present in the source database and are not currently supported with any of the migration workflows. So these are about the schema and PLPG incompatibility, what assessment reports in that. Let's try to understand with a couple of examples as well. First is schema incompatibility example, where this is a create table DDL which is having an area column. As we can see, this is a stored generated column in the Postgres, which is introduced in the pgSQL 12, and this helps in storing this column's value directly in the database without users input, with derivation from the other columns of the table. So this is currently not supported with the stable releases of Yugabyte. So we will report an assessment issue in the report for this. Something looks like this, which have the feature name stored generated columns, and there will be a description, detailed description about this issue, that these are not supported, and the column which is detected is area for this table. And you can also see that there is a workaround available here for this particular feature to use this without having the actual functionality in the database, which is to create a trigger in the database on this table for any of the DML operations, and directly leverage this same function, replicate the same functionality with the help of this. So with this, we understood about the schema incompatibility in one of the create table. Now let's also understand about the PLPG incompatibility. With the PLPG incompatibility, I am mostly talking about the functions and procedures which are present in the source database. For example, here is a create function object which is fetching some employee's salary, which is reading the employees table and then returning an employee salary. Here we can see there is a declare block which is declaring a variable employee salary with the help of a person type or a referencing type feature of Postgres, which helps in directly giving or inferring a data type of the particular column. Here, the user is not using the data type name in the declare it, directly. They are referencing the salary column of the employees. But this syntax is currently not supported, so there will be an assessment issue in the report for this, something like this, which will have the feature name called referencing type declaration of variables. And we can also see there is a suggestion available, which is basic suggestion to remove this syntax to make this function working on the target by just adding a type name over here in the declare block without the referencing syntax. So these are the two schema or PLPG incompatibility example we had discussed. Now let's also understand about how Voyager assessment detect all these. We first of all try to collect all the source details, which are including DDL objects or the DDL statements from the source, and with the PLPG objects as well. Then we all pass these objects through a standard Postgres parser, which helps in returning a parse tree, a detailed parse tree of that statement, which we use to analyze and detect the incompatibilities. For example, here is a parse tree of the DDL which we had seen about the create table, and we can see that there is a constraint type for the generated stored column, and one can use this information to infer that there is a stored generated column in the table, and directly one can directly use this information to detect that particular issue. A finer detail about how Voyager assessment detect all the incompatibilities in the target. Internally we have written a lot of detectors which help in detecting the incompatibilities, all the incompatibilities in a particular parse tree. A parse tree is basically parsed through all those detectors, and then the collective issue from all those detectors are reported in the report. So if there are multiple issues in that DDL, we will report all of them in the report.
So one question, Priyanshi, this parser that
Yeah.
you are using, is it same as that of what Postgres uses, because or YB uses? Because without that, you might be. I mean, the parser
Right.
itself might tell you incompatibilities. Parser itself might be incompatible.
Right. So yes, short answer is we try to ensure we ensure that there is no incompatibility with what we are using. So we use a standard Golang parser which internally uses the same libq library, C libq library which Postgres or Yugabyte is using. So
I see.
we
So it is
ensure that
exactly the
it
same.
yeah it is exactly the same which Postgres or Yugabyte is using. So
Okay.
yeah. This is about the schema and PLPG incompatibility. Let's now talk about the application layer incompatibility. First, let's understood about what our application query or application layer incompatibilities are. So when an application is running on the source database, it is firing some reads and write operations, or it is running some reads and write operation on the database to fetch the information, to store the information. So the source database which we are talking about here is Postgres, has the capability to store all those operations which are running in the database with from the application or even the normal user which is using through the psql the source database. It stores all of those queries, and then in the internal table which can be then used by anyone to analyze those queries for performance purposes or anything they want to understand about the queries. So these are the application queries I am talking about. With this, we try to report all such queries which are running on the source database, which have some issues or some incompatibilities with respect to the target. With this, we try to identify all such features which are present in the application and will not be supported after the migration. So one will only surface these issues when the application is actually pointing to the target after the migration, and the application starts behaving unexpectedly. So they need to understand all such application layer incompatibilities as well beforehand in the migration, so that they can make the necessary changes in the application if required for the target database to work to make that application work on the target database. So these are about the application queries. Let's see one
So
of the
one,
example. Yeah.
so one question: what if there are stored procedures as part of pgstat statements that you want to do?
Okay. So in the database, if the applications are using the stored procedures for their reads and writes, they will be mostly call commands from the Postgres, and the database will store those call commands. But those call commands are not usable for detecting any issues with those stored procedures, because those are not readable for the user, because there is no other information about what they are doing. So we handle those stored procedures in the schema and PLPG part, where we use the whole DDL of the stored procedure and parse it through the parser.
Makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's understand this application layer incompatibility with the example. Here is a read query which is running on the application, fetching some employees detail with some filter on the permissions with the help of an XML function, as we can see. And this
So,
and yeah.
Priyanshi, there is a question. If the source
Yeah.
database is Postgres 16, can YB Voyager detect incompatibilities with a YB database running PG15?
Right. I was going to talk about that. So Voyager assessment provides a detailed assessment or the incompatibilities with respect to the target DB version. So by default, it provides the detailed
So the
incompatibilities with
question
respect
is
to.
about the source DB. So if the source DB is Postgres 16, can YB
Mhm.
Voyager detect incompatibilities with a YB database, which is right now running PG15?
Yeah, right. So incompatibilities can be detected, will be detected in the assessment for all the features which are there in the database for the Postgres 16 and are not supported in the YB database, which is running with the PG15
Right.
as well.
So the PG
Right,
parser that we are using is probably PG16 or 17. So
right.
we are able to detect
17.
all the issues even with
Right.
PG16 source database.
So
Correct? Yeah.
yeah, the parser which we are using is PG17 compatible currently, and it can work till PG17 as well. So we can report the issues till PG17 in the assessment with the latest Voyager.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I was talking about this read query, which is running on the source data, which is running on the application, which is fetching some employees detail with some filters using this XML function XML exist. So currently, Yugabyte doesn't support all the standard XML functions. So we will have some assessment issue reported in the in the report with these information. First is the XML functions feature and the statement, all the proper query which is running in the application is being reported over here for the user to go back and look in their applications what all it is doing and fix it with the proper supported syntax. So this is about the application queries. Let's also quickly understand about how we detect these. As we had already discussed that we use the Postgres view, which is pgstat statements, to gather all the queries which are stored in PG, which are running from the applications or even users PSQL inputs. So all those queries are present in this pgstat statements. We gather all those and then parse through the parser in the same manner we had discussed previously. This is a sample parse tree for the DML, which we had seen in the previous slide. It has the function called to the standard function XML function, which which is running in the in the query with name XML exists. So the Voyager assessment read this information and report all such standard functions which are running, which are being called in the queries.
Yeah.
So
Priyanshi, just a time check. We have 8 minutes left. So
sure,
from the
sure.
time of start.
Yeah, we are almost on the last slide.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah. So this is all about the incompatibilities we had discussed. This is something which we have already discussed, that Voyager assessment also can assess the migration with respect to a particular target DB version as well, and it will report all the incompatibilities which are not supported in that version only. So one can use the target DB version parameter in the assess migration command, and then the assessment will be done on that only. Just a quick information about one of the feature I had mentioned in previous slides, that stored generated columns from the PG12 are currently not supported in the default in the stable release of Yugabyte. But here is the news that Yugabyte release, which is 225, and it is based out of PG15. So it supports the stored generated columns feature, and if you are assessing the migration against that, it should not be reported in the assessment.
So all the PG
So
features from 12 to 15 will be reported if you are right now using 2024.2
24
or below
dot 2.
version, but they won't be
Right,
reported if you are using 2.25 or 2025.1.
right.
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
So
Okay.
this is all about the understanding of how assessment works and how it reports. Let's now see a working demo of the assessment on one of the source database. So here is the source database I have running with the PG17. I have created this YFTT demo database, which doesn't have any schema created already. Let's create some schema now. I am creating some tables and extensions and indexes which are compatible. There are no issues with any of these. But now let's try to introduce some incompatibilities in the database. Here we are creating one of the create table we had seen in this presentation, which is about the stored generated column. We should see something in the assessment report for this. And then we will create another incompatibility. For example, here is a table which is having product description column. For the JSONB data type, we will create an index on this column so that we will see if this is reported, because currently index on JSONB is not supported. So these are the two schema layer incompatibilities we have introduced. Now let's quickly also try to replicate the application queries or application layer incompatibilities by doing some reads and writes on the database. So here is the employees table, which has some data with 3 rows. We will be doing some reads on this for fetching the version information of each of these rows. So we are using an xmin system column from the PG. It helps in giving the ID of the transaction with which these rows are inserted. So we can see all these three rows are inserted in the same transaction and the ID is same. Now let's also try to update the one of the row with ID 1, and we should see a different ID in the previous version with the previous version query. And now we have fired a system column query within the database with this, and we should see something about this in the assessment as well, because currently system columns are not supported. Let's also introduce one more incompatibility at the application layer. We have this users table in the sales schema, which is having two rows. Let's try to fetch the user information of the second user in the JSON format, which is returned with this with the help of this function I have created in the database, which is basically reading the row and returning the JSON formatted data. Let's quickly also fetch the username of the same user with the help of a feature which is present in PG 12 and above versions, which is JSON subscripting. So basically, I am trying to fetch the name field of this JSON-B data, which is returned, but currently this syntax is not supported as it is PG 12 and above syntax in the in the latest stable release of Yugabyte. So we should see some issue about this as well in the assessment. So we have introduced a couple of application layer incompatibilities as well. Now let's run assessment on this database and see what all it is reporting.
You have introduced too many incompatibilities. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this is the assessment command I am using with through Voyager, and all these parameters are the basic source parameters which I have used. The command has generated a report which is present in the local system as well. I'll quickly show that report as well. It's an HTML report. But for the today's session, we'll be using Yugabyte UI to showcase the report in a better way. Here is the assessment report. We can see for the same database which we were running the queries on. We can see this is the detailed schema summary for this same database, which has 19 objects, and out of which 7 are tables, 2 indexes. So we will see what all things which we can see that there is the detailed schema summary is which it is also coming up with, which one can use to directly understand about the source system in the representative manner. So in today's session, we'll be focusing in this recommended changes section, which is basically about the incompatibilities. First of all, this table is about the object layer, object type incompatibilities. So there are two columns, automatic objects and the invalid objects. Automatic objects are all objects which are compatible with target, but the invalid objects are which is not compatible. So we can see for the table there is one invalid object in which is having incompatibility. Let's quickly check what it is. So we can see that there is a stored generated columns reported over here as we have introduced it with the table. So we can see that it is the same table. This is the detailed understanding about the issue. It is also providing a workaround column with the link to the documentation. It provides a detailed understanding about this particular issue, and there is a workaround available for this as I had mentioned in the slides. So one there is a detailed example how to use that workaround as well in the link. So this is about the table incompatibility. There is also in the index incompatibility I had introduced about the JSON-B data type index. So we can see that it is reported in the assessment, and it's the same index we have created. So, yeah, in this way, we can see all the incompatibilities at the schema level is reported over here. Now, let's also quickly check about the application layer incompatibilities. So, the unsupported query constructs issue type over here is basically the application query incompatibilities in the brief term. So this is the one of the incompatibility we had introduced in the application by firing a query to return a name username with the help of JSON-B subscripting feature. and we can see the same query is returned over here, is reported over here. And the second incompatibility which we had introduced is system columns, and we can see the same query with the xmin system column is also reported with that it is not currently supported. So with this, we can see all the four issues which we have introduced are coming up in the assessment report. But out of these, couple of issues are fixed in the 225 release because those are PG12 and above features. So now let's also quickly run the assessment with the target DB version
Priyanshi,
225.
time check.
Yeah.
We are already over time.
Okay.
Let's complete whatever you have.
Okay. Yeah. So, this is the assessment I had run on the with the target DB version 225. Let's quickly also check if the issues are gone.
So this is the one which you ran with a different Yugabyte version, right? This
Right,
particular
with the
run.
target DB version parameter in the assessment
Got it.
command.
Okay.
So here we can see all the four issues. Now two are left, which were not fixed in any of the releases of the Yugabyte currently, and we can see the invalid count of table has gone to zero, and the automatic count has increased to the total number of objects. So with this, we can understand how assessment is reporting all these issues, and we can utilize all this information for the further journey of the migration. So with this, we are coming to an end of the session. We can take the questions now if there are any. Yeah.
Yeah, let's wait for any questions. Meanwhile, yeah. So Jim has this question. Love the UI. Is this compatible with YB and YB on?
So yeah, short answer is no. Right now, it is only compatible with Yugabyte DUI. We have it is in the roadmap for like planning it for YB on and YBA as well in the future.
Yeah, so that should be pretty soon. YBM, I mean YB on is something that is definitely on our roadmap for this year. So yeah.
Right.
Okay. And while the questions are coming up, can you quickly show the HTML report
Yeah,
that you showed?
sure.
I think Yugabyte
Yeah.
DUI is definitely much better, but HTML report might be handy in certain scenarios.
Right.
Yeah, so
So in
can
the
you
look,
quickly, yeah,
yeah,
can you quickly
this
like
is
spend?
also reporting.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is also reporting all the same issues which we had seen in the Yugabyte DUI as well, with all the detailed information about the SQL statement, about the supported version if there are any for the future releases of Yugabyte, and with the detailed description as well. Let's also see the application query incompatibility with which is also having the same information, uh, statement and the detailed docs links as well, and also the description. If there is any workaround, it will also be present over here. So
sounds
this
good.
is the basic HTML report, which it assessment command terms in the local system for the user.
Okay. Thank you, Priyanshi. I think let's wait for 30 more seconds if there are any questions. And
Right.
then maybe we are anyway over time. Let's see. Okay, I guess there are no more questions. Thanks a lot, Priyanshi, for your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone for attending the session. Thanks for watching it. Everyone have a good rest of your day. See you. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you, everyone.